So there are two big news developing about Tesla, one in India and the other in Europe. More and more reports are giving credibility that Tesla's planning on investing $2 billion initially on a new plant in India. So apparently this might be announced at the Global Summit in January. And secondly, despite all this talk about a potential slowing down of electric vehicle demand, nothing can be further from the truth. In Europe, for example, year to date, Tesla cars sold double 100% more than it did last year. And for the month of October, sales of all battery electric cars in Europe grew by 36%. This is a 53% growth compared to last year. So today we have Brian White with us. He's our go-to person who gives me great advice about what's happening with vehicle production and demand. Thank you so much, Brian.
This is such a topic, and I swear every week we think we've seen the last of it, but it just doesn't stop.
It never stops. So let's go ahead and share this data. So Brian has his own YouTube channel called MyTeslaWeekend, and here's the news. So this is, obviously the news about India has been heating up. More and more information. First, we had the ministers talking about it. Then we had news that they were going to relax the import tax regulation by first quarter Q4. But this is looking like it's coming together. Tesla India deal reignites with billions of dollars worth of investment on the table. So this is the repeat, right? November 6th, government departments in India discussed policy changes that would affect electric vehicle manufacturing in the country. They really want Tesla there. So they've taken the approval to change those policies. And then this is the new information, is that according to Bloomberg, Tesla's allegedly planning to invest $2 billion initially on a new plant in India. And in addition, Tesla plans to buy $15 billion worth of auto parts from India. They're mulling over the idea of producing batteries in India to reduce costs. And then last week, the government officials considered Tesla's request to reduce tariffs, which I think they actually did, right? Instead of 100% tariffs for imported cars, it's going to be 15%. So there's going to be consider passing a sunset law clause that would roll out tariff concessions to all electric vehicles, not just Tesla cars, imported to India. And an initial official announcement, so we're expecting this to be officially announced in this Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit in January of 2024. And Elon himself mentioned that Tesla's plans to invest significantly in India in June. So Musk plans to visit India in 2024. So it seems to be that this is coming together. What's your thoughts on this, Brian?
It is exciting. I've been calling this one for 2 years now, and it just makes sense. The problem is they wanted their cake and eat it too. And they said, look, I know Tesla is the kind of company that will go all in on something and take huge risky bets. And that was true 5 years ago, but that is no longer true today. They make careful, calculated risks. And what they're saying, I'm sure the conversation goes something like, we need you to buy all your parts and build batteries here. And Tesla's saying, we probably will, but you can't guarantee it. Look at what we've done in all these other places. We're building we will have battery production in Berlin, in Texas. We already have it in the US, even though at the time it was cheaper to get batteries from offshore. We will onshore this production. You just kind of have to trust us because it will make sense. And if for some reason it doesn't, we don't want to be pigeonholed into this corner where we can't get out. And they're realizing that they're going to have to make concessions or Tesla will delay. And it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Do you want us there now or do you want us there maybe eventually? So this just makes sense for everyone.
Yeah. And you've already clarified too that Tesla may not actually build a factory right away. They will just do what you said, tents to do final assembly, but they can import the cars. That's the first step without all the tariffs, final assembly there, sell it there. And then over time, as the economy cools, gets better, then they might actually do the actual investment at the new factory.
Do
right?
more and more of it. At first, they will do knockdowns or semi-knockdowns from the Model Y. They'll build them mostly in Berlin, import them mostly, partly finished, mostly finished, all the hard parts done, and then do final assembly, and just keep adding more localized parts to it as soon as it makes sense to do so. And it wouldn't have to be tents. It could be an existing warehouse, so to speak. But they don't need to have special purpose-built buildings with sections where the foundation runs 20, 30 feet deep to handle gigapresses or stamping machines. If that part is being done somewhere else, you can use any factory, any warehouse space for final assembly, and it would be a good foot in the door. Of course, they would want to build a factory once they've got a final design for the compact, because the compact is what would sell vastly better in a market like India, where price really is the determining factor for most buyers.
Okay, so great news. We're hearing rumors of in India. Let's talk Europe. So there's always this conversation that electric vehicles are slowing in demand. That is not true. Let's first talk about the growth of battery electric vehicles in Europe, in all the countries there, and then let's talk about Tesla and what it's doing in Europe, which is just news that just dropped last night. So here we've got data from Roland Percher. He's wonderful to keep track of what's happening in Europe, Piloli and X. So year to date, battery electric vehicle share in Europe, year to year growth rate up to October. Look at all these countries, right? So some of them are doubling to 100%. The smaller countries, they're all kind of doubling in their electric vehicle adoption, but it's pretty significant. So here's the kind of a comparison. The green is 2022, and the red is 2023, and then you've got the countries. So obviously, some countries are growing. They're all growing. All of them are pretty well growing, where the yellow is higher than the green, but some are growing even much faster than others across the board in all these countries. Tesla's total market share in Europe has 2.7% versus 1.6%. We'll dive closer to that later. So they doubled their market share, Tesla's market share, versus the total market. ICE cars grew by 16.7%. But the electric vehicle market itself is 45%. That's a significant growth year to date. So this is the data that's part of that. Year to date share 14%, now surpassing cumulative diesel share for the first time. So what's your thoughts about adoption of electric vehicles?
So actually go back to that first Berlinergy slide where it's talking about market share. That's the one. So
This one?
One after that. The Tesla's market share in Europe is at 2.7 versus 1.6. You keep hearing from people who are not being honest that Tesla's market share is collapsing because other EVs have hit the market. That's not the case. It's not an EV market anymore, certainly not in Europe, where the petrol ban is looming. It's an auto market, and that is a over 50% jump versus last year. So looking at the total BEV market, so the entire auto market grew this year. And a lot of that is because we've still got the hangover from the shutdown of a couple years ago. And in some markets, it's not recovered. In the UK, they were running around 2 million sales a year. Now they're running around 1.6. A lot of that could be attributed to Brexit, but I don't know how much of it. And there are, the market itself has recovered, and BEVs have grown faster than the market itself has grown. So while there are more ICE car sales in Europe this year than last, or close to it, battery electrics are unstoppable in Europe, in part because of legislation and in part because they're better cars and oftentimes cheaper cars too. We've reached that kind of price parity. The tipping point has passed. It is over for internal combustion. The only question is how quickly they'll realize it. And Volkswagen, the leader in Europe, knows that they're in trouble and has started freaking out, and rightfully so.
And then now let's talk about Tesla. And it's looking like Tesla is actually gaining more market share while others are losing market share in their share. So let's take a look at Europe. Roland tweeted this out also, saying Tesla is also the biggest market share winner in Europe this year, with 69% growth so far compared to last year. 11 of the 16 brands lost market share. Here's his table. Again, the green is 2022, the yellow is 2023, and you're comparing all the different manufacturers. Tesla being down here, because obviously these are selling all cars. This is not just electric vehicles. This is you're competing with the gas cars, and so the growth from last year is significant. While everybody else, they're losing market share, so they are no longer selling their electric or their gas cars. They're either flat or losing it as we go along. So that's a trend here that's about to explode. Tesla's growing 100% year to date versus last year, 28,000 cars away from overtaking Citroen and 7,000 cars away from catching Fiat. Both had more sales than Tesla in October. But the first month of the quarter in Europe is always the weakest for Tesla. And then here's another table for January to October. Here we're looking at, again, the same thing where we're just looking at car sales for year to date. Tesla,
and that's because
again, is jumped.
The first month is still going to be weaker because there is, especially this quarter, Highland was not shipping as quickly as it needed to be in order to hit first month targets. But even though the delivery wave has been unwound, it used to be that they would only ship at the beginning of the quarter and then localize all deliveries from Shanghai after that. They do that much less now, but they still do it to an extent. So the first month of the quarter is always a little bit weaker when imports from Shanghai are down. And then it always comes roaring back in the second and third months of the quarter. And yeah, these are and the sales growing as much as they have, that's because of Giga Berlin. They've got a local factory. There's no import tariffs to get the cars there. They're already there. And it allows for a better customer price, a higher margin, and just domination overall. Because the Model Y turns out pretty good selling car in every market it's in.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com. Right. So this is news about India. We get news about Europe. And then just recently we got news that in China, Tesla is doing very well the last week registration. So it looks like everything's going really well so far. Knock on wood, as we head into the final quarter here, we're still on track. Thank you so much, Brian. I love it when we talk Tesla production and deliveries with you and gigafactories and all sorts of things that you're expert in. Check out his website, his YouTube channel at MyTeslaWeekend. See you, everybody.